In February 1945, conventional infantry doctrine failed. The point of failure was a single volcanic island in the Pacific. Standard ordnance was rendered inert by geometry. Why did standard explosives prove useless? The reason was hidden in 90-degree angles of concrete. A standard hand grenade had a shrapnel radius of 15 meters. A satchel charge contained far more destructive power. But against the Japanese fortifications on Iwo Jima, this power was nullified. The defensive network was a system of zigzagging tunnels carved from rock and reinforced with concrete. A Marine runs toward a pillbox aperture. He places a satchel charge directly inside the opening. He turns and dives for cover. The expectation was total destruction. The reality was a deep, muffled sound, a hollow thump absorbed by layers of earth and concrete. The blast wave traveled down the tunnel. It hit the first 90-degree turn and dissipated. The shrapnel embedded itself harmlessly into a concrete wall. Seconds later, Japanese soldiers from an adjacent chamber reoccupied the position. Gunfire resumed from the same dark opening. The tactic was ineffective. It was a mathematical failure. A new tool was required. The order was given. The M2 flamethrower teams were moved to the front line. The individual pillbox was not the primary threat. The threat was the system, a defensive network engineered with mathematical precision. At first, there was silence. Then, the island opened fire. Coordinated artillery and machine gun batteries engaged the landing zone. The attack was simultaneous. The silence was part of the plan. The Japanese commander, General Kuribayashi, had issued a specific order: hold fire. Based on his studies of American amphibious doctrine, he calculated the exact moment of maximum troop density on the beaches. He waited for the landing craft to create a bottleneck of men and equipment. Then, he gave the signal. The geography itself became a component of the trap. Marines struggled to advance up the steep terraces of soft volcanic ash, slowing their egress from the beaches. This natural obstacle was covered by hundreds of reinforced concrete bunkers. The pillboxes had overlapping fields of fire, were connected by extensive tunnel networks, and were seamlessly integrated into the terrain. Pre-invasion aerial reconnaissance had identified only a fraction of the total defensive structures. The failure of pre-invasion reconnaissance was compounded by a strategic miscalculation. The naval bombardment was rendered ineffective. For the first wave of Marines, the ground itself was the initial enemy. Their boots sank into soft volcanic ash, a material that impeded vehicles and exhausted personnel. Before this landing, for 3 consecutive days starting on February 19, 1945, the island was subjected to a massive preliminary bombardment. Naval guns and carrier aircraft systematically saturated the surface. Where was the Japanese garrison during this multi-day shelling? Deep inside the volcanic rock. The soft earth absorbed the kinetic energy of the shells. It cushioned the blasts. Below, Japanese soldiers registered the bombardment not as a direct threat, but as a deep, sustained vibration through the stone. The sheer firepower of the U.S. Navy had been nullified by geological composition and superior engineering. The bombardment had failed. On the landing beaches, there was zero available cover. When 14-inch naval shells proved ineffective, the Marine Corps deployed a man-portable chemical weapon, the M2 flamethrower. It weighed 70 pounds. The device was a system of 3 tanks. The 2 larger cylinders held 5 gallons of thickened fuel, a gelatinous mixture of gasoline and diesel. A smaller central tank contained compressed nitrogen. This gas acted as the propellant. To fire, the operator opened a valve, forcing the gel through a hose. A white phosphorus system at the nozzle provided ignition. This design imposed severe operational limits. Its effective range was 20 to 30 yards. Total firing time was under 10 seconds. The apparatus consumed half a gallon of fuel for every second of use. This was the reality. The operator had to sprint toward a fortified position under fire, all while the 5 gallons of viscous liquid shifted, unbalancing his center of gravity. After 10 seconds, the M2 was inert. Just 70 pounds of dead weight. The operator's only remaining armament was his sidearm. His only remaining weapon was a 1911 pistol. The M2's twin-tank configuration made the operator instantly identifiable. Visible from 100 yards, a priority target. What happened to the man when the 10 seconds of fuel ran out? He became a target, stripped of basic rights. An operator's primary fear was not combat death, it was capture after a misfire or after the tanks ran dry. The tactical doctrine required a coordinated assault. A squad of Marines provided suppressing fire. The operator would rise, beginning his charge. Instantly, the twin tanks on his back drew concentrated crossfire from the Japanese defenders. Bullets produced a distinct metallic clang against the steel cylinders. According to the Geneva Conventions of 1929, flamethrower operators were legal combatants. This was a legal fiction on the battlefield. In practice, an unwritten rule applied. Much like spies or snipers, these men were denied the privilege of becoming prisoners of war. Capture was not followed by interrogation. The enemy executed the operator on the spot. This systematic liquidation created an unprecedented statistical anomaly, a result measured against 8 square miles of volcanic rock. But this particular island was strategically priceless. It sat directly on the flight path for American B-29 bombers, a critical link between the Marianas Islands and the Japanese mainland. After the fighting, the exchange became visible. Heavy B-29s flew overhead, using the island as a forward base. Below them, Army engineers moved across the scarred landscape. Their task was to seal the entrances to the enemy's underground network. A persistent smell of burnt rock and sulfur hung over the island. Its very name, Iwo Jima, meant Sulphur Island. The battle made that name literal. This strategic gain was recorded in operational reports, but another statistic was recorded in casualty lists. The flamethrower operator became one of the most statistically lethal roles of the Pacific War. A 92% casualty rate, a combat life expectancy of 4 minutes. The engineers were tasked to seal every bunker, every cave, every tunnel of that subterranean fortress. 11 miles.